It was
Tough
a good
love.
part.
Okay, before
Tough.
we get to ranking Brock, we haven't forgotten. I want to shout out Philip Rivers. Before we
Oh,
never talk about him again because the Niners aren't going to face that team, that was one of the coolest things I've ever seen. And I think a little part of everyone was rooting for him just because it felt like he was trying to accomplish the impossible. What did you think of Philip Rivers against the Niners?
okay, I'm going to tell you a story. At halftime, my phone rings, which pisses me off because, I'm thinking of a game. I look, it's Tom Walsh. So Tom Walsh calls me up and he's so excited. He says, Lowell, what Philip Rivers is doing, he was like hyperventilating. What he's doing, he said,
Yeah.
this is the game, the performance of the century. That's what he said. And he was so excited. And I loved this guy won a Super Bowl with the Raiders. It was so excited. And then he's, how smart Tom is. He's a
Yeah.
genius. And he starts saying,
Yeah.
Lowell, it's not just a sports performance, it's a mythic performance. He says,
Yeah.
it's like Walter Mitty. That's a short story you don't need to know about. It was a movie. It's like Don Quixote. It's
like
a
the
myth.
natural.
Yeah, I was going to say it. It's if you haven't seen the
It's the
movie,
natural.
it's based on a Bernard Malamud novel, his first famous novel about a baseball player, and Robert Redford played the natural. It's a guy who comes from God knows where, and all of a sudden is hitting home runs all over the place. So Iggy, Tom was that excited. So I want to talk about Rivers' performance in 2 acts. Okay, first half, second half.
Mhm.
Bear with me. If you do a doctorate in English literature, one of the poems you have to study is the old English epic called Beowulf. Iggy, have you ever read Beowulf? Okay.
Yes.
Beowulf was written roughly 1,000 years ago, and it is a great fucking poem, and it's a long poem. It's called Old English, but it's much closer to Old German than what we would experience as English. It's a story about Beowulf, who's a hero, and the good guys, the guys he hangs around with, are threatened by a monster named Grendel. Beowulf takes on Grendel and kicks the shit out of him and kills him. Think of Beowulf as Batman because he doesn't have superpowers and he doesn't have gadgets like Batman, but he's just tough. Grendel's mother is so pissed, she comes after Beowulf and he kills her too. And then he becomes the king and everybody's really happy. And that's the first half of the game last night. Philip Rivers is Beowulf and he's defeating Salah. That's the issue. He was calling the plays. Iggy, you saw what he was doing. He was getting up to the line of scrimmage. You know what I mean?
It was really cool.
And he had his
really cool.
He had his
You don't
way
see
with
it like
Salah.
that anymore. That's what I'm going to talk about. But you go ahead.
And Salah for him was Grendel and Grendel's mother, and he beat them.
Yep.
But now, and what it meant was for all old people, we're not remaindered, we're not dead, we're not in the closet. We still have hope, and it means for everyone, underdogs, overdogs, that there's still glamour and jubilation in life. Now in the second half, he wasn't so great anymore. And he threw, finally, the worst was the pick six that he threw. So it's like in what happened in Beowulf, 50 years later, a dragon comes. And Beowulf, being what he was, wants to protect the good guys and goes to fight the dragon. And he gets killed. The dragon kills him. It's tragic. And what it means is, when he was younger, he could have beat the dragon. But now he was 50 years older. And he was defeated by time. And what I saw in the second half, I hope I'm not going on too long with Beowulf, Iggy.
No.
What I saw in the second half was he got old. He got tired. He hadn't sat on the bench. He was jumping around. And Salah figured him out somewhat, but the dragon got him. And it means even to the greatest heroes, it ends in tragedy. And it ended in a little tragedy for him and the Colts. And everyone faces it. Everyone gets old and has loss. God knows. I know about that. And so what I felt was the game last night was Beowulf, and it was the tragic cycle of life, jubilation into tragedy. And I loved it on that level, Iggy. I loved it.
That was good, Dad. I like that. I like that.
You
That was
liked
very
it?
poetic. Okay.
Thank
I
you.
loved it. That was great. A plus. From a football standpoint, I just loved watching him before the snap because people don't play quarterback like that anymore. The idea that 2 weeks ago he wasn't on the team, and then now like he's no huddling, bringing them to the line of scrimmage, acting like he's about to go fast, getting the Niners to sort of declare what they're going to do on defense, and then hanging back, thinking about it, calling a play, setting the protection. I mean, that's how Peyton Manning played. That's how Tom Brady could play. You don't see quarterbacks. Mahomes doesn't do that. No one does that because coaches don't let them or they're not good enough. I don't know what the reason is, but it was so cool to see like the art of quarterbacking because it's kind of dead. He brought it back.
Yes, and I love what you're saying, and for me, because I'm old and I've watched a lot of football, it's what football should be.
Yes. It's the
It's what
quarterback's game, not the play
quarterbacking
caller's game.
should
Remember
be.
5 years ago when the Niners were talking about maybe getting Tom Brady, we were like, well, no, that could never work because Tom would want to do that and Kyle would want to do the thing he does with Brock, and they could never meet in the middle.
No, never. They'd have conflict in training camp.
Yes. And I got to give Shane Steichen credit for like getting out of the way and letting Phillip Rivers do that because that's the only way he knows how to play quarterback. And he probably wouldn't even want to do it if he had to do it any other way.
That's right. And he was wonderful. It didn't matter to me who won. I wasn't rooting for Rivers to win, but I was rooting for him to be great. I was rooting
Yes.
for that story and for how much courage he showed. And then you didn't see it on TV. He has all these children. He had a whole rooting section. You know what I mean? They were wearing Colts shirts. It was phenomenal. And you got to remember, a few weeks ago, this guy was coaching high school. Some of these kids weren't even in puberty yet. You know what I mean? And he was coaching high school. And here he is scaring the death out of Robert Saleh.
Yeah. I just love it's like I feel like a lot of these quarterbacks that are 22, 23, these Gen Z quarterbacks who grew up watching, I don't know, Mahomes or something, they think that playing the position is running around, scrambling around, making big plays. Like that's what Caleb Williams does. He makes these incredible highlight plays, but no one could play the position like that anymore. It was nice to see a guy who's borderline Gen X coming back and be like, listen, kids, this is how you do it. I hate watching you play quarterback. You're constantly leaving the pocket. You do work at the line of scrimmage. Before you do film study, you figure out the line of scrimmage, and when you get the ball, you already have a good idea of where you're going with the ball, and you get it there on time. I mean, he's not a flashy quarterback. That's how he always played, but he was damn good. And I feel like he was going to be eligible for the Hall of Fame next year. And I don't know if he would have made it because he played all those years in the Chargers and never really did anything in the playoffs. But now I feel like there's a renewed appreciation for Phillip Rivers. Like, oh, he was a hell of a quarterback. And maybe if he'd been on better teams, he would have been a Super Bowl. Like, what's the difference between him and Peyton Manning really, other than the teams they were on? He was doing a dead ringer Peyton Manning impression last night.
Yeah. Iggy, another way of saying what you're saying is we saw an artist.
Hell yeah. An artist.
We saw an artist.
And he can still do it.
We saw an artist.
Yeah, it was like watching Mozart,
saw
you know what I mean? Doing the whole choreography.
Yeah. We saw an artist. And we have not seen that. We've seen great athletes, but we saw an artist.
Yeah.
Joe was an artist. Steve was an artist. Manning was an artist. Marino was an artist. We saw.
And last night, Purdy was an artist. Last night, Purdy was an artist.
Yeah,
too.
and last night, he was. And
that's, I think, what makes his
translated
performance so good. Go ahead.
No, I translated into artist because that's how I think. And I appreciate art. And one of the things I like about CMC when he's good, he's an artist.
Yes, absolutely. Kittle as well. Warner as well. Yeah. And I think
and I'm going to say
when
something.
Purdy's at his best, he's an artist.
Iggy, I want to say this.
Sorry, you're cutting me out.
Bill Walsh was an artist. Mm-hmm. Even his game plans. I used to see him make up, the little games. He didn't do X's and O's. He did O's and triangles. I don't know what Tom did. They were works of art. They were so beautifully constructed. He was an artist. I would say sometimes Kyle veers into the artist. I'm not sure if he has an artist temperament. It would be interesting to ask him because I asked Bill, "Do you feel like an artist?" And he said, "Yeah." He said, "Yes." I wonder if Kyle even understands the concept. He still may be an artist even if he doesn't understand the concept.
Yeah, if you ask Kyle, do you consider yourself an artist? He would probably be like, I don't know how to answer that question, and maybe no. But if you ask Sala, do you consider Kyle an artist? He'd probably be like, absolutely, and here's why. I would think.
Yeah, I totally agree. He could explain Kyle better than Kyle could explain Kyle.
Yeah, easily. And again, I've always like been kind of conflicted with Kyle. But the fact that Robert Sala respects him so much and is so eager to work with him really speaks well for Kyle.
Yes, it does. Yeah. Wouldn't you assume that Kyle gives him a great deal of autonomy?
I would think so. Especially this time around. I don't maybe the first time around there was a little bit more give and take, but this time it's probably that's your half of the team.
Yeah, I
Or
would
third.
think he has such confidence in him. Uh, and thank God, let me handle this stuff. Let me handle the offense and the egos that I got over here and the game planning. You just handle the defense. That's how good you are. I think that's how it works. I would be shocked if it doesn't work that way.